Alright guys, I am going to go over Monday's practice page so you can, hopefully you've checked these to see if you got them right, and if you missed any, you'll be able to skip through and find the one that you need help on. Alright, so we were talking about dimensional analysis, which another way that you could say that, if you're thinking about what that means, really we're talking about unit conversion, changing from one type of unit to another. Today we're only going to do one step, and what we mean by one step is we're going to go from one unit to another unit. So we're going from pints to quarts. We don't have any things like miles per hour, which would be two steps, two types of units. So we're only dealing with one type of unit in these problems. Okay? So we want to figure out how many quarts is equal to 62 pints. So what we're going to do, draw a line. Okay, and what we need to do is we need to put a conversion here that will help me get rid of pints and convert it to something that I want. Okay, so I'm going to go over this chart. Miss Roundtree was using this for her notes, and I'm going to look for something that has pints and something that will help me go to quarts. And if I look about halfway down here, I see pints and quarts right here. Okay, now here's the thing we got to remember. We want to get rid of pints. Okay, because that's what we started with. We started with pints, so I know that pints needs to go on the bottom. Because kind of like when you have a fraction, if you have something divided by something, it cancels out. Okay? And we want to see what we can change pints into. So again, we can change pints directly into quarts, which is exactly what we want. So we need quarts on top. And now, how do I choose where to put the numbers? Guys, you have to put these numbers with whichever thing they go with. They're stuck. That 2, if I'm using pints and quarts, that 2 has to go with the pints. It's stuck to it. And that 1 has to go with the quarts, because that's like a true statement. It's kind of like me saying, let's think of another example here. 4 quarters equals $1. Right? That's another true statement. And it's because of the value of the units. I couldn't switch this around and say 1 quarter is $4. That would not be true. We all know that. Okay, this works the exact same way. There are 2 pints in 1 quart. I can't flip that around and say 1 pint is equal to 2 quarts. That does not work. Okay, so it has to be a true statement, and we have to put the numbers where they go. So the 2 goes with the pints, and the 1 goes with the quarts. Now, what that does, it cancels out pints with pints. Notice I only canceled out the units. I did not cancel out the numbers. Okay? And now, once I have the units that I want, then I'm done. And all I have to do is, I really had a lot of extra space here, I have to multiply across the top. So 62 times 1. And if there were more numbers on the top, you would multiply all the numbers on top together. And you multiply any numbers on the bottom. Well, there's only one number, and it's 2. So I really need to do 62 divided by 2. If you do that in your calculator, you get 31 quarts, which is QT. Okay? So 31 quarts is number 1. Alright? Moving on to the next one. Pounds to tons. So again, maybe I won't draw it so long this time just in case I don't need that many. Alright? If I look on my sheet, I want to see, is there a direct comparison between tons and pounds? Alright, if I get to looking down here, bam, here it is. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. Okay? So again, I want tons to go away, so tons needs to be on bottom, and pounds, which is abbreviated LBS, by the way, so I'm going to abbreviate, but that's pounds. Okay? So if you ever see LBS, that's pounds. Okay, and now I need to put in the numbers where they go. Make that a capital L so we know it's an L. Alright, so according to our chart, 1 goes with ton, and 2,000 goes with pounds because it's stuck to those pounds. Okay, so 2,000 over 1. And tons cancels with tons, and that leaves me with pounds, which is what I want. So I'm done. All I have to do now is multiply across the top. So we need to do 2.5 times 2,000, which is 5,000 over 1, which of course is just 5,000. Okay, so in 2.5 tons, there are 5,000 pounds. Okay, now let's look on at number 3. How many seconds are in 254 minutes? Now, Miss Roundtree's sheet is wonderful, handy dandy. I could go to it and bring it back and look at these conversions if I need to, but hopefully some conversions we should know without having to go to that chart. I know that there are 60 seconds in a minute. So if I know the conversion to be true, I can go ahead and use it. And of course it is on Miss Roundtree's sheet. It's right here. If you didn't know that, you could go find it. Okay, but some things, some conversions we're kind of expected to know. Okay, 60 seconds in a minute is one of those. Alright, so in 1 minute, there are 60 seconds. The units is what determines top and bottom. And the numbers go with whichever units are where, right? Like 60 has to go with seconds wherever seconds is at. If seconds was on bottom, then the 60 would be on bottom. But it's not. Seconds is on top because I needed minutes to cancel out with minutes, and I have to cancel top to bottom. It's all about unit and unit placement, and then the numbers just fill in where they're supposed to go. Okay, so that means we need to do 254 times 60, which I don't have a calculator in front of me. Give me a second. $254 times 60 is 15,240. So we're talking about 15,240 over 1. Again, the 1 comes from here on the bottom. And that is going to be 15,240 seconds. It is quite possible to get some very large numbers here. They could be very small, they could be decimals, they could be very large. Don't assume that because you got a big number, it's wrong. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. Alright, we want to go from centigrams to grams. Alright, so we want to, I don't know, some of them you may know, some of them you may not. Maybe we don't know centigrams to milligrams. But if I look over here, I'm looking for anything with centi. Alright, centi, and then we have M, L, and G. Meters, liters, grams. It could be any of these units. The one we're talking about specifically is centigrams. But it doesn't matter. So in 100, there are 100 centigrams in 1 gram. Okay? Again, meters to meters, centimeters to meters, centiliters to liters, centigrams to grams. Okay? So the L goes with the L goes with L, G goes with G, M goes with M. But it doesn't matter which of those three it is. You can't go from M to L or M to G, but as long as you're going from G to G or L to L or M to M, you're okay. Alright, so there are 100 centigrams in 1 gram. So I go back here. Centigrams on bottom and grams on top. And there are 100 centigrams in 1 gram. That's what that chart said. The 100 was stuck to the centi, or CG. Okay? Alright, so now I need to multiply. Now this time we got something a little different going on. Because, by the way, I should have said this a second ago, sorry. Those are now canceled, and I'm left with grams, which is what I want. So if I have my units correct, I know I need to stop. Alright, so 237 times 1 over 100 this time, because my number on bottom is not a 1 or 2, which is the only other option we had before. Alright, so I need to do 237 divided by 100, which is 2.37. Go ahead and change these to decimals. Most of the time you will change these to decimals. And that is grams, so 2.37 grams. Okay, inches to feet. This is another one that I would hope we would know without having to go to the chart. In 1 foot, and again, I'm doing feet on bottom because I want to get rid of the feet on top. Alright, there are 12 inches. Feet cancels with feet, and I need to do 2.8 times 12. Okay, which is 2.8 times 12, 33.6. Okay? So that's number 5. Rolling on to number 6. How many pints are in 12 quarts? Now this one we've had before. We had it in number 1. Right? But it was the other way around. We were looking for quarts and we started with the number of pints. This time I want to know how many pints are in a certain number of quarts. So it's going to be very similar. I'm going to start with this. How many pints? So notice kind of like these other ones are already, top 5 were already set up for you. This one's not, so I'm going to set it up myself. How many pints is equal to 12 quarts? And then I'm going to begin my stacks. Okay? So what do I know? I know that in 1 quart there are 2 pints. Now, it's the exact opposite of how I had it set up before. But the reason is I had quarts on top, so I needed to put quarts on bottom. But notice the 1 had to stay with the quarts because that number is stuck to that unit in this particular conversion. The 2 pints had to stay with the 2. Okay? And now quarts cancels with quarts. And I'm left with 2 times 12, which is 24 over 1, which is 24 pints. So in 12 quarts, there are 24 pints. Okay, how many, that's my blank, miles equals 10,245 feet? Okay, maybe you know how many feet are in a mile. Maybe you don't. If you don't, you look over to the chart, and that is the first one that she has on here. 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So again, feet are going to go on the bottom, and I know that because I want those to cancel. And the miles are going to go on the top. And what was that conversion again? There are 5,280 feet, which means that has to go on bottom because it has to stick to the feet in 1 mile. Okay? So then, I cancel out my units. Again, only the units are canceling, the numbers aren't. And then we're going to multiply because I have the units that I want. Miles and miles. 10,245 feet. Or sorry, yeah, 10,245 divided by 5,280 equals. Alright, and then in your calculator, you're going to type that in. I'm using one on my phone just because that's what I have handy. 10,245 divided by 5,280 equals, and we get that. And we are, if you get a decimal like this, we will round. Okay. If it doesn't tell you, like this one does not specifically say what to round to, I, as your teacher, would take 1.9 or 1.94. You probably don't necessarily want to round to the nearest whole number. Go at least 1 or 2 decimal places. But always look, just in case your teacher might have on an assignment later on, we might have round your answer to the nearest 10th or nearest 100th, and that would tell you 1 or 2 places. So always look for that in the directions, but if it doesn't say what to round to in the directions, generally speaking, you want to go 1 or 2 places for most problems. Okay? How many millimeters, I'm just going to use the abbreviation, again it's right here, millimeters, is equal to 2.3 meters, which is just a single M. Alright? This is going to be back to those weird ones right here, where we got meters, liters, grams, and we have milli is that MM. So millimeters. Or we could have milliliters or milligrams. But in our problem, we have millimeters. Okay? So there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. Okay? And I'm specifically going to meters, or going away from meters, so there we go. Meters needs to go on bottom. And millimeters goes on top. And the conversion is, in 1 meter, there's 1,000 millimeters. Okay? So that is 2.3 times 1,000 over 1, which is 2,300. Alright, so now we want to move on to number 9. how many minutes, so again, blank minutes is equal to 3 hours. Okay? And then we're going to start our conversions. And now again, hours and minutes is one that I know. So in 1 hour, there are 60 minutes, right? That's a pretty easy one that we know, or we should know. If not, you can go to that chart, as always. But, you know, you want to know, there's some of them that are what I call walking around knowledge. How many seconds are in a minute? How many minutes are in an hour? You know, days in a week. Some of those things are walking around knowledge. Pints and quarts? Maybe not. You don't really use that very often. Most people don't. Alright, so 3 hours times 60 minutes. So first off, the hours cancel. I need to remember to mark that. I didn't actually mark it on the previous one, but I should have, just to be consistent. And then 3 times 60 is 180 over 1, which is 180. So there are 180 minutes in 3 hours. And finally, on number 10, how many cups would be needed to hold 26 ounces of water? How many cups would be needed to hold 26 ounces of water? Now again, maybe you know how many ounces are in a cup. Maybe you don't. If you don't, then go to your chart. Okay? Ounces, OZ. Now be careful. We have ounces twice. So we got to choose which one makes more sense for us. 16 ounces in 1 pound is great if you're trying to go from ounces to pounds, but we're not. We're going from fluid ounces, this is technically fluid ounces, to 1 cup. Okay? So that's what I want. I want to go from ounces to cups. So ounces on the bottom and cups on the top. And my units, we can go ahead and cancel those whenever, once we get them set up. But now I need to put the numbers in the right place. So again, what was that conversion? 8 of the ounces, and the 8's got to stick to the ounces, is 1 cup. 1's got to stick to the cups. So that means 1 goes on top, 8 goes on bottom, which is 26 divided by 8. And 26 divided by 8 is 3.25. So that is 3.25 cups. Alright, there's your 10 problems. If you have questions, reach out to us, Miss Roundtree, or Miss Sheely, or Miss Hodges, or myself, depending on who you have as your teacher. Okay, get help if you need it.